Alright everyone, welcome back to another Game Vault video. As always, I'm Captain Beefy with the Game Vault, and you just can't trust game developers these days. Not these activists that are disguised as game developers, I should be saying. You know, to be more clear, here's a rumor. Bioware may be stealth introducing politically charged content into Mass Effect 5 post-launch. Let that sink in. Let's cue the music and then we'll talk about this. Alright, so for those of you who've been asleep for the past few months, you may not know that Bioware's most recent game release was Dragon Age: The Veilguard, which was a massive failure. Critically and sales-wise, everything, it just absolutely tanked when it hit the market there. Nothing more than a woke trauma dump that the former director of the game threw up out there into the market for whatever reason. It's all about being trans and non-binary and all this other nonsense that doesn't belong in a dark fantasy game with a medieval setting. I mean, it's absolutely ridiculous. And I'm not being overly critical on this one. It's beyond ridiculous. It's at the point of self-parody how bad this game is. Not only that, but the character design was silly. It looked like Fortnite. The color palette of purple, this weird purple that we're seeing more and more often in video games. I don't know if that's what that's a thing, you know, where that's coming from. People have said that's like a feminist color palette or a trans color palette. I don't know. I don't care. I'm tired of seeing it, but you see it all the time. I've seen it for Avowed now coming out. I saw that was a very heavy color for Suicide Squad. Kill the Justice League when that was being first advertised. Lots of these purples. Gameplay was, you know, the combat was ridiculed for the game as very basic. Not ridiculed so much as it was just underwhelming and very basic. Certain things like decision making and all that was toned down to the point where what you did really didn't matter in the game. Yeah, it was just really, really bad. Overall, disappointing sales numbers. And I think that game is going to actually cost jobs at Bioware, as it should. Anybody involved in the woke part of that game and injecting all that garbage into the game, those who approved it, those who created it, and those who pushed for it, they should all be canned. So hopefully that happens and they get blackballed from the industry and never work in gaming again. But anyway, a supposed insider claiming to be a contractor working on Bioware's upcoming Mass Effect 5 revealed that EA and Bioware might be shifting strategies in the wake of Dragon Age: The Veilguard's epic failure. Alright, so here it is. I work as a contractor for Mass Effect 5. I do QA, and I have a warning. Let's read it down here. We got an all-hands-on-deck meeting that was recently called. Devs were asked to delay features, art, and content that may be deemed woke or political and defer them to future patches, the anonymous user said. As QAs, we were tasked to report if we audit or detect anything that might resemble them so they could be fixed. The company wants to launch the game as clean as possible and introduce woke stuff silently through patches. I fear this might be industry-wide. They wouldn't be issuing this so early otherwise, so tread carefully. This is completely diabolical if this is the case, and if they do this, if Bioware does this, this would destroy all credibility with them whatsoever, and I would never trust that company again. Any company that does this, I would never trust them again. I would boycott them 100%, call them out, call them to task, and yeah, just push back against them until they're in the dirt, because that would be so wrong. You don't do that. You don't do that. That's like false advertising, you know, the bait and switch, right? Can you imagine? I mean, seriously, can you imagine them doing that? I can actually. That's the filthy way that these scumbags do business, you know. I can see it happening, and it wouldn't shock me one bit. Anyway, it's entirely possible that Bioware and EA are wary of ideological or political content after the horrible failure of Dragon Age: The Veilguard. A recent report from YouTube creator Smash JT, citing sources within Bioware, stated that the big budget title has yet to move 1.5 million copies worldwide. Now let's put that into context. The last game in the series came out 10 years ago. 12 million copies lifetime sold. Now that's not 12 million in the first couple months, of course, obviously. This game is never going to sell 12 million copies. Not in 1,000 years is it going to sell 12 million copies. It's never going to reach the acclaim that the last one had. It's never going to be looked back upon as a great game or something that people have nostalgia for, other than a handful of weirdos that, you know, saw themselves in the game because they came out to their mother at the dinner table as non-binary. That's going to be it. It was a game made for the modern audience. The modern audience showed up and played it, all 5 of them. It never topped 100 concurrent players on Steam. Not even the opening weekend. It never topped 90,000 players. I expected it to at least top 100,000 players, just based off of name recognition alone. And I had low expectations, and it didn't even meet those, which was astounding to me. And then it just dropped after that like a rock. So, oof. Bad. Anyway, Dragon Age represented a major financial and critical embarrassment for Bioware, and many believe the upcoming Mass Effect 5 could be the studio's last chance. And you know it will be. Now, Mass Effect 3 was fairly disappointing for a lot of people. You know, 1 and 2 are critically acclaimed games. 3 had a lot of issues with it, and they released a DLC for it that kind of helped fix some of those issues. Mass Effect Andromeda, a lot of people hated it. It was kind of a fall from grace for that series. It was never called Mass Effect 4. Mass Effect 5, I'm sure, is just the working title of this game. Who knows what it's going to be, how it's going to fit into the whole Mass Effect universe. Nobody's sure right now. It's probably going to be bad. I just have a feeling. You know, BioWare, and this is something that we all have to recognize, is that these studios are no longer the studios that they were 10 or 15 years ago. Those studios are gone. The people that worked at them are gone. They've moved on. They've either quit their jobs, they've retired, moved on to different studios, and they've been replaced by younger people in this business, in this industry. And unfortunately, you know, these younger people, a lot of them are ideologues, a lot of them are activists, and the hiring practices of these companies has changed. It's gone from merit-based hiring to DEI-based hiring, diversity, equity, and inclusion-based hiring, which means they're not hiring the best person for the job. They're ticking off boxes when they're hiring people. And this is not some made-up boogeyman. This is not something that, you know, oh, you guys are just scared of brown people and women. No, this is an actual hiring practice. It's on Activision does it, Ubisoft does it. We've seen it on their websites. We've seen them admit to it. I believe Bioware themselves has done it. You know, you'll see these guys talking about it, and they're basing their hiring on the color of someone's skin, their gender, their sexuality, you know, all these different things, not their merit. So they're not getting the best people for the job. And that's why games are suffering, okay? That's why games are no longer as good as they were. Hollywood's been doing it for even longer. That's why movies suck anymore. You hire people for anything other than the fact that they're good at what they do, and yeah, quality suffers, right? If you hire, you know, if you open a restaurant and you don't hire the best chefs in the world, you just hire people, you know, you say, I'm going to hire one black chef, one white chef, one girl chef, one gay chef, one trans chef, you know, and all that, just because that's what they are, and you don't look at their qualifications, we're going to have a mixed bag. You don't know what their qualifications are. Some are going to be good, some are going to be bad, but you have no guarantees that they're, you know, there's going to be any consistency there, any quality there. And that's what sucks. And that's where we are in gaming right now. And until these games continue to fail and we keep voting with our wallets, and that's what you need to do as a consumer and as a gamer, is don't buy these games. Don't pre-order. Absolutely do not pre-order anymore, unless it's, you know, and even if it's someone you trust and it's a studio you love and you trust them 100%, be cautious. You know, you can't even wait for reviews to come out anymore. There's usually reviews out like 2 or 3 days before the game's released. That's when they lift the embargoes. You still can't trust them, because a lot of the people that will release these reviews will give a good review even to a mediocre or worse game, so they don't lose access. You know, they're access journalists, right? They don't want to lose access to future codes to games. If I got a code for Dragon Age, the Veilguard, and I gave them a crappy review, an honest review, and I said this game is a 2 out of 10, they wouldn't send me one for Mass Effect 5, right? They'd be like, no, screw that guy. He crapped all over our last game. We'll send one to IGN, who gave us... They gave him a 9 out of 10, man. That's unbelievable. All right, well, let's move on. Anyway, the current state of Bioware, coupled with the recent release of the Mass Effect board game, has left many fearing for the future of the signature franchise. Sources from within the company exposed a culture of toxic positivity where decisions are driven entirely by identity politics. Additionally, the Mass Effect board games confirm the fears of many with the inclusion of pronouns for iconic characters, including she, they, listed for longtime squad member Liara Tassoni. She, they. It's so cringe. It really is. Whoever came up with that stuff, you're pathetic. Liara was always referred to as a she-her within the original 3 Mass Effect games. Issues surrounding gender were one of the many complaints against Dragon Age, where large sections of the game were dedicated to ideologically driven conversations. The game also allowed players to select their preferred pronouns and design characters with scars that indicate elective body modification surgery. Hence, the removal of breasts. The Reddit thread in question was removed with mods citing misleading information. However, the author still managed to respond to several questions beforehand. In these responses, the supposed insider confirmed that Pride Flag cosmetic patches were planned with alternative names like Bubblegum Patch for a design featuring blue, pink, and white. Additionally, the leaker noted that pronoun selection was included in the current build. That's filthy, man. That's absolutely filthy. Former World of Warcraft lead Mark Kern seemed hopeful at this rumor. I can tell you this, he said, speaking on the rumor that Bioware political content was being removed for now and added in later. When management says delete this now, they don't really plan to add it in later. They're saying that to keep the activist employees from rioting. However, this would seem to confirm a scoop that YouTube commentator Endymion shared back in September that noted studios were going to start injecting DEI content in secret. According to my sources, and this was one of the most damning allegations, so please listen carefully here, Endymion said, is that the game industry across plenty of studios will start to market their games as being devoid of identity politics and pandering almost completely. However, the actual content within these games in the future will not be altered or lessened in terms of identity political content, despite this tonal change in marketing. Essentially, Endymion's sources believe that the industry is about to start playing 4D chess with gamers, attempting to trick them into purchasing content that features identity politics. Simply put, many studios and publishers are still all in on DEI and wokeness in the future, like they are not changing that. And they still want you to consume this content whether you want to or not, but they will now sell you the games by marketing them to you to trick you into think they're not woke, basically. And then you'll buy it, and then sometime in the future experience all the wokeness, I guess, will reveal itself, and then you'll probably be too far into these games in order to refund them, and then these studios and publishers will make their money. Wow. So what do you guys think? You think that's going to be the case? That seems like a lot of work. I mean, that's not a lot of work to inject that stuff for the future, but I guess it is. I mean, it's filthy. If that's going to be the practice, then yeah, you're going to have to wait for, channels are going to be making money on. I'll start a channel, be like, is it woke? And just buy new games, play it all the way through, and let you guys know, is this game woke or not? And have a woke-o-meter or something like that, rated, 0 to 10 on the woke scale, and let you know what's in there that's woke. But, hiding it within the game is one thing. Putting it in through patches later in the game is something completely different. That's actually filthy if they do that. And any company that does that is, that's beyond the pale. That's a company I would never do business with again. Never. Absolutely not. Anyway, let me know your thoughts down below in the comments. Don't forget to leave a like on the video down below, subscribe to the channel, and ring that bell for notifications. I will see you guys next time. Until then, peace.